Well, welcome again to San Remo Sauces, and I thought today, before we start in the kitchen, I'd show you San Remo from the outside. And we have a very fine building here. Inside there is where all the magic happens, but there's a lot of magic out here as well. And we've got a lovely view looking over to the Old Harry Rocks and Swanage, which you can see twinkling at night. This beautiful building was erected in around 1935 by an American, I think it's an Irish-American architect called Hector Hamilton. And it's quite an astonishing building actually. And on a future occasion we'll delve more into the history of the building. But as ever, the kitchen calls, and it's time to start today's recipe. I'll just leave you with the beautiful view on what is a lovely sunny February day. Well, here we are in the kitchen, and we've had a letter from a Mrs. Trellis of North Wales, which reads, "Dear Matt, our village in Wales is twinned with one in Russia. Can you suggest a Russian recipe which we can share once the exchange visits start up again?" Well, yes, Mrs. Trellis, we can indeed. I mean, today we're going to do chicken Kiev. Now, the first thing is to start with garlic sausage. Now, that might sound a bit strange, I appreciate it. But we're going to make some sausages to stuff inside the chicken. That's the first stage. So what I've done, I've put some frozen garlic, frozen parsley, which is a great ingredient, and lemon juice and butter. Mixed it all together. It's gone a little bit too watery because of the frozen garlic in particular. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of flour to make it into a rolling consistency, which won't do any harm at all. But really sometimes cooking is a question of improvising, I think, and who knows, it might come out really well. A little bit experimental. Anyway, you might need a little bit more. I think that's okay. What we're going to do here, we've got 3 chicken breasts, so we've got 3 pieces of foil here, and I'm just going to put some of the mixture onto each of the pieces of foil. And of course this will be stuffed inside our chicken breast to make it really lovely and moist and tasty. So once again, that's lemon juice, parsley, garlic in whatever form you want. I just use frozen because it's handy to keep in the freezer. And then next thing to do is to just prepare a little parcel like that. Oops, just coming out the end a little bit, but don't worry too much about that. Oh dear, this isn't going very well, is it? No, I think we ought to start again. Well, welcome back. We seem to have remedied the situation. So what I've done, I've got some larger pieces of foil, just thrown my environmental credentials right out of the window, and I've put the garlic parsley butter into 3 packages. You can use cling film for this, but I didn't have any, so I've gone with the foil which I've got. Now these go into the fridge or the freezer depending on how much time you have. I haven't got a lot of time because I'm a NHS person today, later on. So I'm going to put these in the freezer. We're going to come back to them, and then we'll embark on stage 2 of the process, or stage 3, because I mucked up the first stage. Anyway, I've kept the residue of the garlic parsley butter there because that's going to come in useful later on, probably in the next stage. See you very shortly. Welcome back. Now we get to what is probably the most important and difficult part of the whole process, making the pocket for our garlic butter. Now you need to start at the fat end. If you're a surgeon or you have access to a scalpel, that may well be a useful thing to use. But anyway, a sharp knife. Create this pocket. Now you don't want to go all the way through, of course, but you do want the pocket to be big enough to allow the garlic butter a decent size home, so you can get enough in there and that you can seal it up again. So just don't go through, but make a pocket about that size. And now we'll go and see how our garlic and parsley butter sausages in the freezer are getting on. Let's hope they've formed into a more solid, albeit malleable form. Well, I'm pleased to report we now have a more solid version of the garlic butter, which we can use to stuff the chicken Kiev. I mentioned earlier that I had saved the residue of this garlic butter, so I'm not going to waste it. I'm just going to rub the chicken in it just for a little bit of added viscosity. That'll be helpful when we come to the breadcrumbing. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a piece of my garlic butter and put it in. You can really just be guided here by the size of your hole and just how much you can get in. Okay, so as you can see, managed to get quite a bit in, maybe a little smidgen more. The more you get in, obviously the oozier and lovelier the chicken Kiev is. And then I'm just going to seal that up. Now again, if you're a surgeon and you have access to edible stitches, you could stitch it up, but that might be a little bit over the top. Anyway, just get as good a seal as you can and then set that aside. Do your other chicken breasts, and I will come back to you once all three are done. Welcome back. You can see that I have my 3 chicken breasts prepared now, or half prepared anyway, stuffed with the garlic and parsley butter. I'm going to seal them up a little bit more in a moment before I go to the next stage. I've been quite generous with the garlic butter, as you can see, but I've got some left over, and rather than waste it, I thought maybe make some garlic bread to go with this dish. So that's saved for that purpose. Excuse me while I just turn the music down. It's the trouble with Radio 3, you want a nice bit of piano music and they play a blaring symphony. Anyway, Mrs. Trellis also writes in her letter, do I have time to also show a vegan and vegetarian version of chicken Kiev? And the answer, Mrs. Trellis, is, well, a couple of weeks ago maybe I would have done, but with lockdown ending soon, no I haven't, so we're going to skip over that. Anyway, on to the next stage. Hello, welcome back, and now we are moving on to the coating stage. So we're getting towards the end of the preparation now. You can see I've got my chicken breast ready, and they're nice and gooey inside and out, which will help with the dipping process. Now what we've got here, we've got some plain flour mixed with just plain flour mixed with a bit of seasoning. We've got some breadcrumbs. I'm using panko breadcrumbs, which give a lovely texture. You can use ordinary breadcrumbs, or you can make your own, of course. And those breadcrumbs are mixed with some Parmesan cheese. And then I've got some beaten egg there, about 3 eggs, and about 1 per breast. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my first chicken breast, try and retain the seal as much as you can. Now first you dip it in the flour, get it nice and coated there. There we go. And then in the egg, bit of a messy procedure, but quite good fun. And then finally, trying to retain the seal, in the breadcrumbs. Okay, so what we recommend you do, that actually does help with the seal actually, and what we recommend you do for extra crunchiness is to do the whole thing again. So in the flour, seasoned flour, in the egg, and then again in the breadcrumbs, and you should have a nice result there. It doesn't look great at the moment, but we've retained the seal, and we're going to set that aside. So do that 3 times, and then I'll come back to you with the final stages of our chicken Kiev. Thank you. Hello again. Well, the people at Blue Dragon offered me £10,000 not to promote their product on my cooking channel, but they are a pretty good breadcrumb, so I'll give them a mention. Anyway, you can see now we've got our coated chicken breasts, and I must admit the process of doing it was quite enjoyable. I wouldn't recommend that a toddler does it, because you might end up with a kitchen plastered with mess. Well, rather like my kitchen was a minute ago. But anyway, we've coated the chicken breasts, and in a moment I'm going to welcome you back, and we're going to start stage 1 of the cookery process. But in between, these have to go into the fridge. It's best to let them rest for an hour at least, but I'm going to let them rest until after my 111 shift, which starts at 7 p.m, finishes at 11. So I'll be back on my bike later on in the day, or early in the next morning, and we'll proceed to cooking. But for today, it's thank you very much for joining us, and it's goodbye until part 2. Goodbye from San Remo Sauces. Hello, welcome back. Well, I'm back from my 111 shift, having dealt with a few issues, and now I'm ready to finish the recipe. So the chicken Kiev with the raw chicken and the breadcrumbs and all the other ingredients around it have come out of the fridge, and now what we need to do is preheat our oven to about 180, and then over a medium heat with some oil, just fry our chicken breasts, our coated chicken breasts, for about 2 to 3 minutes each side. And when I've done that, I'll come back to you and we'll go on to the final stages. Welcome back to the real final stages of our chicken Kiev session, and this has been cooking now for 2 or 3 minutes each side, and you can see it's started to become nice and golden and looks really quite tasty. What I'm going to do now though, because the chicken is still fairly raw inside, this is a very flimsy fish slice. I'm going to just put it into an oven-proof dish. The oven has been preheated, as I mentioned, to about 180. If you have a fan oven, less than that. But I haven't got a fan oven, I've got a very basic oven. And there you can see how nice it looks already. But it's going to go into the oven now for around 20 to 25 minutes. Just to cook through, and then it will be hopefully delicious. So I've got a little glass of wine with it, but I have been working quite hard this evening, and there's some very nice music on Radio 3. They've ditched the symphonies and finally gone to the piano music, which I heartily approve of. So into the oven for the last part of the process, and next time you see this chicken Kiev, it will be tasting time. Well, thank you very much for watching. This is the end result, the chicken Kiev. Let's have a look in the middle to see if the butter oozes out. Well, I think it's not oozing, but it's pretty moist in there. And that is chicken Kiev. Thank you very much for watching. Tune in to another episode of San Remo Sauces, when we'll be looking at another recipe. Good night from Boscombe.